Hi, Michaela. Just looking at your poster, it looks good. The only thing that I really notice is that this whole thing, almost besides these three elements of your design, it's all one chunk, all one image. And how I was hoping that you might do this is that, and I didn't realize that in class because I didn't really see you working in your file when we were in class. But one way to do this, I guess, that I was hoping for was that maybe the background would be a separate file. So the blue with the blue images or the blue kind of swirls going through it would be completely separate from your wheat image. You would have exported that out as, say, background as a AI file, maybe if you made it in Illustrator. And so it would be a separate link in here. And then this file could be exported out with the musical notes, and that could have been called like wheat. And that could have been an AI file. As long as you set up your AI documents in CMYK at high resolution, should have been perfectly fine. And then even the last best waltz font, I mean, if you have Illustrator open, and you have a document with some imagery on it, or some text, how about I just make a new document? So file new, 11 by 8.5, CMYK, high resolution. It should be good settings for print. And then, let's just say I'm working on my font, the last best waltz. And then I think if we do a control click on this, or maybe highlight it, control click it, and then create outlines, that will create outlines of our text, so it's no longer text, which means that I can't edit it anymore because it's literally shapes. You can see all the anchor points that go around, just like when you draw something. But this way, we're never missing fonts, and it actually is really handy if you do a Command C, and then you can just bring it right into your document, do a Command V. So you could have done that with your Last Best Waltz font. I know that maybe you said that you drew it, which is great. But I would have just maybe copy pasted it in to Illustrator or InDesign from Illustrator without even exporting out a file from Illustrator. Just copy paste it directly in from your Illustrator document into your InDesign document. And there are some advantages to doing that. When you do that, you can quickly change the colors. It's super simple. So if I wanted to change this to like a red and then give it like a pink outline or something, I can do that really easily. And if maybe I wanted to make the stroke bigger, I can do that within my program. So I'm not having to hop around a lot, which is a nice option for this sort of thing. And then you can be experimenting with a lot of different things quickly if you do it that way. So, I mean, a lot of these things you can just copy paste them right in. You could have probably done that with this too, and you can change the colors in InDesign, but like, I think it's best to just do it with text a lot of the time, especially like with this headline. So that might not have showed up in your links panel if you copy paste it in. It doesn't actually show up as anything because it's just shapes, but it still is in high resolution and everything. And I would have suggested to do that with your Last Best Waltz text. If you open your Illustrator document, copy, and then paste it right into InDesign so that you can quickly change your gold color and all that if you wanted to. That's kind of how I wanted you to construct this. I wanted it to be different elements exported out of their native files, but brought into InDesign for the actual layout process. And that makes it nice if you're working in here in that way, because you can experiment a lot more without having to jump back and forth, I guess. So like one thing I was thinking with this design-wise is you could actually flip this. And I'm just thinking of this. I mean, I would have maybe brought it up in class if I hadn't had thought of it before. But you could flip this wheat image to be coming from this corner, and so that would kind of lead your eye up in this way, and then potentially lead the eye even more around the canvas. And so you'd have one diagonal going this way from the background image, and then one diagonal going this way from your wheat stock potentially. And if you had that on a separate layer, you could really quickly experiment with that. By using the flip horizontal if you're in a Essentials Classic, basically in that workspace, and quickly be like, oh, I like that or I don't like that, or flip it back, within InDesign itself. Another thing with this gold, I think it printed really nice, but I think this gold could be a brighter gold. It's kind of quite muted, and I think it would look better brighter. And another thing I noticed, and it's not a huge deal, but with this there's a stroke that comes down and kind of cuts off the T a little bit. And getting rid of those two lines to open that up would be a good idea, just because it would match the rest of the font better. Not a huge deal. These are just small things. Another thing, we did talk about the use of black in this, and I don't think that you should never use black, but I almost wonder for this if it would look better as a dark blue with these black strokes on the background swirl things. Maybe making those like a dark navy blue, and the same, you know, maybe for these black music notes, making those a different color. Maybe even white, because there's not very much white in the poster that I can see. And white would look really nice popping off that blue. So that might actually look decent in white. And yeah, I think also we did kind of discuss this MAT, or this Montana State University logo. I do think it would probably, I mean, we could do it really quick because I have one ready here. See what that looks like. And I think it does look a little cleaner. We could even move it away from the edge even more. Just because there's going to be that white space around the edge, and we want these spaces to be roughly equal so that it just looks a little cleaner. And maybe something like that. I mean, I do think this text could have maybe been bumped down just slightly away from the edge there, and this text maybe just slightly bump it down. And it could have overlapped this swirl in the background to create more depth in the piece if it was overlapping slightly. Just a little bit, you know, like, you know, you bump that down and have it overlap just a little bit, just to where it's barely touching. You get that little extra bit of depth in the piece, and then it also will allow for you to have a little bit more breathing room up here. And it does seem like, you know, maybe this could be a little bit bigger. You know, I think it's okay if it overlaps the swirls. Just to make it more legible, because I mean, I think you were at, let's see what font size we were at. Which is 22 is still pretty high as a point size, but you have a lot of space to work with. You might as well try and kind of fill up the canvas. And this might actually be something too that, you know, maybe this would look good. Potentially good white, I'm not sure. It might not too. It's just one of those things you have to experiment with, but I don't really like that actually. But and even so with this could be the gold one instead of white potentially. Yeah, that kind of matches really nice and looks good. And maybe this gold could kind of match the northern gold a little bit more, just because it does pop off really well and it's not as muted. But anyway, other than that, I think you've done a really good job. The main thing that you maybe lost a few points on was the fact that this is just all one image. And I was hoping that you would lay it out in InDesign. So moving forward, we want to try and lay everything out in InDesign and not in a different program, and then bring it in as one big chunk, basically into InDesign, because we're using InDesign to lay it out. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Sorry this is such a long video.